Welcome to the Allison Knows podcast. Today we're diving deep, into the Song of Solomon,
Ooh,
one of the most debated and yes, sensual books in the Bible.
it's true.
It's basically a collection of love poems bursting with passion and longing and imagery that's truly breathtaking.
Yeah.
We've got excerpts from scholarly analyses, personal notes, and even some ancient Jewish interpretations. A real treasure trove to unpack.
Absolutely. And what makes the Song of Solomon so fascinating is how it's been interpreted throughout history.
Mm-hmm.
Some see it purely as a celebration of romantic love, a testament to the beauty and power of human connection.
Right.
Others see a deeper meaning, interpreting it as an allegory for the relationship between God and Israel, or even Christ and the church.
So many layers to uncover.
So many.
I'm all about those layers,
Yeah.
those hidden meanings waiting to be discovered.
Yeah.
Let's start with the foundation. The text itself. One thing that jumps out right away is how much the Song of Solomon relies on the natural world to paint these incredibly vivid pictures. We're talking gardens overflowing with fragrance, ripe fruits, practically bursting with sweetness and landscapes that evoke both intimacy and grandeur.
And it's not just about creating a beautiful backdrop for the lovers.
Wow.
These natural elements are carefully chosen to enhance the emotions, the desires, even the power dynamics between the couple.
Okay.
Take, for example, the frequent comparisons of the woman's hair to a flock of goats descending Mount Gilead. It's more than just a visual.
Right.
In ancient Israel, goats were a symbol of prosperity and fertility, so it's subtly hinting at her desirability, her potential to create abundance.
Well, that's a great catch. I never thought about it that way.
Yeah,
It's like each image is a puzzle piece, and when you put them together,
it's true.
they reveal a deeper understanding of the text.
Yeah.
What other hidden meanings have you uncovered in the Song of Solomon's imagery?
Well, there's the intriguing description of her teeth being like a flock of newly shorn sheep, each bearing twins. Again, the focus is on abundance. But this time, it's paired with the image of sheep known for their gentleness and purity.
Yeah.
It's as if the poet is highlighting not only her beauty, but also her innocence and virtue.
It's amazing how these seemingly simple descriptions are actually layered with cultural and symbolic meaning.
Totally.
It makes you want to reread every line,
Yeah.
searching for those hidden gems. But it's not just the visual imagery that's so striking.
It's true.
The Song of Solomon engages all the senses. There's a constant interplay of aromas. Myrrh, frankincense, spikenard, creating a heady, almost intoxicating atmosphere.
And don't forget the taste imagery.
Oh, yeah.
Honeycomb figs, pomegranates. These aren't just randomly chosen treats. They were considered luxurious and even aphrodisiacal in ancient Israel.
Wow.
So again, we see the poet using sensory details to heighten the sensual and erotic undertones of the poem.
It's truly a feast for the senses. But beneath all the beauty and sensuality,
Yeah.
there's a current of longing, a yearning that runs through these poems. It's not just about the joy of being together. It's about the pain of separation, the desperate search for reunion.
Absolutely. One of the most powerful examples of this is the line, "By night on my bed I sought him whom my soul loveth. I sought him, but I found him not." It perfectly captures that restless yearning, the way love can consume your thoughts, even your dreams.
It's so relatable even thousands of years later.
Yeah.
That feeling of searching for someone who feels essential to your very being. It's a universal human experience.
It is.
And what I find particularly interesting is that it's often the woman who is the active seeker in these poems.
That's a really important point. The Song of Solomon is set within the patriarchal society of ancient Israel, where women were typically expected to be more passive in matters of love and courtship.
Right.
Yet here we see the woman boldly expressing her desire, taking the initiative to find her beloved. She's not simply waiting for him to come to her, she's actively pursuing him.
It definitely challenges those traditional gender roles.
It does.
And there's another passage that speaks to this. I am black but comely, O ye daughters of Jerusalem, as the tents of Kedar, as the curtains of Solomon. She's acknowledging her darker complexion, which might have been seen as less desirable by societal standards.
Right.
But she's also asserting her own beauty, her own worth.
It's a powerful statement of self-acceptance, especially within a culture that often equated beauty with fairness.
Yeah.
And she goes even further, mentioning her work in the vineyards, suggesting that her value is tied not just to her appearance, but also to her labor, her contribution to society. She's a complex, multifaceted character, far more than just a passive object of affection.
She's a woman who knows her own worth, both physically and in terms of her capabilities.
Oh, absolutely.
And she's not afraid to express her desire to defy societal expectations in pursuit of love. This deep dive is already blowing my mind. And if you're enjoying it too, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the Allison Knows podcast. You can also find us on YouTube and Spotify for even more deep dives into fascinating topics.
Yeah.
Now, before we get too carried away, I have to ask, when we're talking about this yearning, this search for reunion,
Yeah.
is it purely about romantic love? Or is there something more going on here?
That's where the allegorical interpretations come in and things get even more intriguing. Jewish tradition often sees the Song of Solomon as an allegory for the love between God and Israel.
Okay.
The longing, the search, the joy of reunion, it all becomes a metaphor for the spiritual connection between the divine and his chosen people.
So we're talking about multiple layers of meaning here,
Mm.
just like those intricate tapestries where the same threads create different images depending on how you look at them.
Exactly. And Christian tradition often interprets the Song of Solomon as an allegory for the love between Christ and the church. The passionate language, the imagery of intimacy and union, it all points to a deeper spiritual connection, the yearning of the soul for God's love.
It's fascinating how the same words can take on such different meanings depending on the lens you're looking through.
It is.
And it makes me wonder if the author was consciously weaving these multiple layers of meaning into the text, or if they emerged over time as people engaged with the poem and found their own personal resonance within it.
That's a question that has fueled countless debates among scholars. But regardless of the author's intention, the fact that the Song of Solomon can be read on these different levels just adds to its richness and complexity.
Yeah.
It speaks to the power of metaphor, the way words can transcend their literal meaning and tap into something deeper, something universal.
And speaking of universal themes, the Song of Solomon isn't just about the yearning for love. It also celebrates the beauty of the human body, the joy of physical intimacy.
Absolutely.
In a way, it normalizes those desires, presenting them as a natural and even sacred part of the human experience.
Absolutely. Passages like, "Thy two breasts are like two young roes that are twins which feed among the lilies," are far from shy about celebrating the female form.
Wow.
And when the male lover describes her navel as a round goblet which wanteth not liquor, and her belly as a heap of wheat set about with lilies,
Okay.
he's expressing a deep appreciation for her sensuality and the pleasure he finds in her body.
It's incredibly sensual language.
It is.
And it definitely challenges the more prudish interpretations that have sometimes been imposed on the Song of Solomon.
Yeah.
It reminds us that physical desire, when expressed within a loving and committed relationship, is something to be celebrated, not shamed.
Absolutely.
But before we delve further into those steamy passages, let's take a quick breather. When we come back, we'll explore how those desires play out in the Song of Solomon, and we'll unpack even more of those layered metaphors and hidden meanings. Stay tuned.
If you're loving this journey through the Song of Solomon, please remember to like, subscribe, and share the Allison Knows podcast. We are also on YouTube and Spotify. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the Song of Solomon.
It's amazing how this ancient text can spark such lively discussions, even thousands of years after it was written.
Right.
Before the break, we were talking about the Song of Solomon's celebration of physical intimacy and desire. It's not exactly what you'd expect from a religious text, is it?
That's one of the things that makes it so unique and, frankly, a bit controversial. It challenges the idea that spirituality and sensuality are somehow opposed to each other.
Yeah.
The Song of Solomon suggests that they can coexist, even enhance each other. And it does so with a level of detail and poetic imagery that can be quite startling.
Like when the woman describes her beloved's legs as pillars of marble set upon sockets of fine gold. That's not exactly subtle. It certainly isn't. And when he compares her neck to a tower of ivory and her breast to clusters of grapes, he's using imagery that's both visually striking and suggestive of abundance and pleasure.
It's like they're painting these incredibly detailed portraits of each other using the language of desire.
Yeah.
Capturing both the physical beauty and the emotional intensity of their connection. But it's not just about physical attributes.
Right.
There's a deeper longing, a yearning for union that goes beyond the merely physical.
Precisely remember that line, "Stay me with flagons, comfort me with apples, for I am sick of love."
Oh, yeah.
It speaks to a kind of love that consumes you, a longing that can feel almost like a physical ailment.
It's almost like an addiction, a craving that only the beloved can satisfy.
Right.
And it makes those moments of reunion all the more powerful, all the more ecstatic. There's a passage that captures this beautifully. "His left hand is under my head, and his right hand doth embrace me." It's a simple image, but it speaks volumes about the comfort, the intimacy, The sheer joy of being held by the one you love.
And it's in those moments of intimacy that the Song of Solomon truly pushes the boundaries of what we might expect from a religious text.
Yeah.
Take, for example, the passage where the woman says, "Let my beloved come into his garden and eat his pleasant fruits." It's a clear metaphor for sexual union,
Right.
but it's also framed within this beautiful image of a garden, a place of beauty and abundance.
It's almost like they're reclaiming sexuality, presenting it as something natural, even sacred, within the context of a loving relationship. And it's interesting how the Song of Solomon uses this garden imagery throughout the poem.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a place of private intimacy, a secret space shared only by the lovers. Other times it expands to encompass a wider landscape, a metaphor for the whole world blossoming under the power of their love.
That's a great observation. The garden becomes a symbol of their love's transformative power, its ability to bring life and beauty to everything it touches. And it's not just gardens. The entire natural world seems to echo the lover's passion. The mountains skip like rams, the hills like lambs, even the trees rejoice at their presence.
It's as if their love is so powerful, so life-affirming, that it impacts the very fabric of creation.
Huh.
But as much as the Song of Solomon celebrates this passionate, earthly love,
Yeah.
it also acknowledges the complexities and challenges of relationships. There are moments of jealousy, insecurity, even anger that surface throughout the poems.
One striking example is that line, "Jealousy is cruel as the grave. The coals thereof are coals of fire, which hath a most vehement flame." It's a stark reminder that love can be both a source of immense joy and profound pain.
It's almost like a warning,
Yeah.
a recognition that even the most passionate love can be destructive if it's not tempered with understanding and compassion. And it adds another layer of complexity to these characters.
Right.
They're not idealized figures. They're flawed, capable of both great love and petty jealousy.
And it's that complexity, that honesty about the messiness of human emotions that makes the Song of Solomon so relatable even thousands of years later. It's a reminder that love is a journey, not a destination. It requires effort, patience, and a willingness to navigate the inevitable ups and downs that come with any relationship.
Yeah.
But it's a journey worth taking because ultimately love is what gives life meaning and purpose.
Beautifully said. And speaking of journeys, this deep dive has been an incredible exploration of the Song of Solomon's many layers we've uncovered, hidden meanings in the imagery, explored the cultural context, and delved into those steamy passages that have both intrigued and scandalized readers for centuries.
And we've barely scratched the surface. There's so much more to discover in this rich and complex text. But before we continue, we wanted to take a moment to thank our amazing listeners. If you're enjoying this deep dive, please remember to like, subscribe, and share the Allison Knows podcast. You can find us on YouTube and Spotify for even more fascinating explorations of history, culture, and spirituality.
Now back to the Song of Solomon. We've talked about the literal interpretation of the poem, the passionate love between a man and a woman, and we've touched on the allegorical interpretations where that love becomes a metaphor for the relationship between God and his people. But there's another layer of meaning that I find particularly intriguing, the mystical interpretation.
Yes. The mystical interpretation sees the Song of Solomon as a representation of the soul's journey towards union with the divine.
Okay.
The longing, the search, the moments of ecstatic union, it all becomes a metaphor for the spiritual seeker's path to enlightenment.
So instead of a man and a woman, we're talking about the individual soul. And it's yearning for connection with the divine. It's
Exactly.
like a whole new dimension opens up within the text.
Exactly. And it's a dimension that has resonated with mystics and spiritual seekers across different traditions for centuries. For example, in Jewish Kabbalah, the Song of Solomon is often seen as a guide to the soul's ascent through different levels of spiritual awareness, ultimately leading to a state of divine union.
It's amazing how this one text can hold so many layers of meaning.
Right.
It's like a prism refracting light into a spectrum of different colors,
Yeah.
each one beautiful and illuminating in its own way.
And it's up to each individual reader to decide which interpretation resonates most deeply with them. There's no right or wrong answer. The beauty of the Song of Solomon lies in its ability to speak to us on multiple levels, meeting us wherever we are on our own spiritual journeys.
I love that idea. It's like the Song of Solomon is a gift, a treasure chest filled with gems of wisdom and insight waiting to be discovered, and each reader gets to choose which gems they want to take away and treasure. But no matter which interpretation you favor, there's no denying the sheer beauty and power of the Song of Solomon's language.
Right.
It's filled with metaphors that are both sensual and evocative, painting these incredibly vivid pictures in your mind.
Take, for example, the line, "Set me as a seal upon thine heart, as a seal upon thine arm. For love is strong as death, jealousy is cruel as the grave. The coals thereof are coals of fire, which hath a most vehement flame." It's a powerful image, isn't it? The seal represents a permanent mark, an unbreakable bond, and by comparing love to death, jealousy to the grave, and passion to fire, the poet is emphasizing the intensity and all-consuming nature of these emotions.
It's almost like a warning. Love can be a force for good, but it can also be destructive if it's not handled with care.
Right.
And it speaks to the complexity of human relationships, the way love and jealousy can coexist, even feed off each other. But despite those darker undercurrents, the Song of Solomon ultimately celebrates love's transformative power, its ability to heal, to uplift, to make us feel truly alive.
And it does so in a way that transcends time and culture. The Song of Solomon was written thousands of years ago, yet its themes of love, longing, and the search for connection still resonate deeply with us today. It's a reminder that these are universal human experiences, as relevant and powerful now as they were in ancient times.
It's like the Song of Solomon is a bridge, connecting us to those who came before us, reminding us that we're all part of this grand tapestry of human experience, woven together by the threads of love loss and the enduring search for meaning. And as we approach the end of our deep dive, I'm curious to know what stands out to you as the most powerful takeaway from the Song of Solomon.
For me, it's the reminder that love is a multifaceted and complex experience. It can be passionate and sensual, tender and vulnerable, joyful and heartbreaking all at the same time. It's a force that can consume us, transform us, and ultimately make us feel truly alive. And the Song of Solomon, in all its poetic beauty and raw honesty, captures that complexity in a way that few other texts can.
I couldn't agree more. It's a celebration of love in all its messy, glorious, contradictory beauty. And it's a reminder that love is worth fighting for, worth cherishing, worth celebrating in all its many forms. But before we get too sentimental, I think it's time for another break. When we come back, we'll wrap up our deep dive with some final thoughts and reflections on the enduring power of the Song of Solomon. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the Allison Knows podcast. We've been on quite a journey with the Song of Solomon, haven't we? From those lush descriptions of nature to those steamy exchanges between the lovers and all those layers of allegorical and mystical meaning woven throughout the text.
It's true.
It's a truly remarkable piece of literature.
It is, and one that continues to spark fascination and debate. Even today, we've explored so many facets of the poem, but before we wrap up our deep dive, I wanted to circle back to those mysterious daughters of Jerusalem. There's such an intriguing element of the Song of Solomon, almost like a Greek chorus commenting on the action and adding another layer of perspective.
They're like the voice of the community, sometimes echoing societal expectations, other times challenging those norms and offering a different viewpoint. I'm especially curious about that repeated refrain. I charge you, O daughters of Jerusalem, that ye stir not up nor awake my love until he please. What do you make of that?
It's a fascinating line, isn't it? On one level, it speaks to the woman's desire to protect the sacred space of her love, to keep it safe from outside interference. She's saying, let our love unfold naturally without pressure or expectations.
It's like she's acknowledging the power of societal pressures, the way external forces can influence the course of a relationship.
Right.
And she's choosing to prioritize her own feelings, her own connection with her beloved above those external pressures. It's a powerful statement of autonomy and self-determination.
Exactly. And it also hints at the potential for conflict between individual desires and societal expectations. Remember, the Song of Solomon was written within a patriarchal society where arranged marriages were common and women's choices were often limited. So this line could also be read as a subtle act of rebellion, a refusal to conform to those restrictive norms.
It's like she's carving out a space for her own agency, her own right to choose whom she loves and how she expresses that love. And it's a theme that resonates across cultures and time periods, doesn't it?
It does.
The tension between individual freedom and societal constraints is something we still grapple with today.
Absolutely. And the Song of Solomon, in its subtle and poetic way, offers a powerful reminder that love can be a force for liberation, a way to challenge those constraints and claim our own autonomy. But it's not just about societal pressures.
Right.
The daughters of Jerusalem also play a role in highlighting the emotional complexities of the poem. They act as confidants, offering advice and support to the woman as she navigates the ups and downs of her relationship.
There's that scene where she describes her beloved to them, asking for their help in finding him. Saw ye him whom my soul loveth?
Yeah.
It's like she's seeking validation from her community,
Yeah.
wanting them to recognize the depth of her love and the worthiness of her beloved.
And it's in those moments that the Daughters of Jerusalem embody the power of female friendship, the way women can support and uplift each other, especially in matters of the heart. It adds another layer of richness to the poem, reminding us that love doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's shaped by the relationships we have with those around us.
It's like a reminder that we're all interconnected, and even the most intimate experiences are influenced by the social fabric of our lives. But speaking of intimate experiences,
Yeah.
I can't let us go without discussing one of the most iconic and often debated passages in the Song of Solomon. Set me as a seal upon thine heart, as a seal upon thine arm. For love is strong as death, jealousy is cruel as the grave. The coals thereof are coals of fire, which have the most vehement flame.
Right.
It's so powerful, so evocative. What are your thoughts on this passage?
It's truly a masterpiece of poetic expression, and one that has sparked countless interpretations throughout history on a literal level. It's a passionate plea for unwavering love, a desire to be so deeply embedded in the beloved's heart and mind that nothing can separate them. The seal represents an unbreakable bond, a permanent mark of belonging.
And the comparisons to death, the grave, and fire, they all speak to the intensity and all-consuming nature of love. It's not just a fleeting emotion, it's a force that can both create and destroy a power that demands our full attention and respect.
And within the allegorical interpretations, this passage takes on even deeper meaning in the Jewish tradition. It's often seen as a representation of God's covenant with Israel, the unbreakable bond between the divine and his chosen people. The intensity of the language reflects the depth of God's love, and the jealousy mentioned speaks to the exclusivity of that relationship.
And in the Christian tradition, it's often interpreted as a metaphor for Christ's love for the church, his willingness to sacrifice himself for the sake of those vanity. He loves the imagery of death and fire, evokes the passion and suffering that Christ endured for the salvation of humanity.
It's powerful.
It's amazing how this one passage can hold so much meaning, resonating on so many different levels. It's a testament to the power of poetry, the way words can transcend their literal meaning and tap into something deeper, something universal.
Absolutely. And it speaks to the enduring power of the Song of Solomon itself, this ancient text with its lush imagery, its passionate characters, and its multifaceted layers of meaning continues to captivate and inspire us, and challenging us to think about love in all its complexity and to embrace its transformative power.
So as we reach the end of our deep dive, what are the key takeaways you hope our listeners will hold on to? What has the Song of Solomon taught us about love, desire, and the human experience?
First and foremost, I hope listeners will come away with a deeper appreciation for the beauty and complexity of the Song of Solomon itself. It's a text that rewards close reading and contemplation, offering something new to discover with each encounter. Secondly, I hope they'll be inspired to explore the many layers of meaning within the poem, from the literal interpretation of romantic love to the allegorical and mystical readings. And finally, I hope they'll be reminded that love is a powerful force, capable of both great joy and profound sorrow, and that its complexities are worth exploring, even celebrating.
Beautifully said. The Song of Solomon is a gift, an invitation to embrace the full spectrum of human emotions, to delve into the mysteries of love and desire, and to find our own personal meaning within its timeless words. And if this deep dive has sparked your curiosity, we encourage you to explore the Song of Solomon further on your own. You might be surprised by what you discover.
And if you enjoyed this journey through the Song of Solomon, don't forget to show us some love. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share the Allison Knows podcast. You can find us on YouTube and Spotify for even more deep dives into fascinating topics.
Thank you for listening to the Allison Knows podcast. Follow Allison on Blue Sky, YouTube, and TikTok.